that's all the DM categories until we get to the best DM category later. We're going to do player awards. These are always crazy. These are always a doozy. We have player with best outside the box moment. This is the player this year who found an unintuitive or unconventional way to play the game for their benefit. I think it's Edan for his insane conditions in artistic interpretation. For those who are not in the know, artistic interpretation is a game we mentioned earlier where you have to draw or you have to paint on a canvas. And what that means, you have to fill a grid in with different colors. And in doing so, you have to satisfy a list of conditions, right? You have to satisfy all these conditions, and you can come up with the conditions you want to satisfy. And Eden looks at the list of conditions and decides the condition he wants is there are at least twice as many blue squares as blue squares, which means that there are 0 blue squares. And he has a few other ones that are equally insane. I think he does something like Road 2 does not have yellow or yellow at some point, right? Some insane buffoonery, and it totally befuddles his opponent. Like, Wimp never had a chance. He was never even close to getting any of these rules, and Eden just, like, slowly bled him out. I think the other thing PRCS wanted me to shout out was Eden's overall strategy was also really good. He had a very specific way of going about uncovering what the conditions were. That also aided with the fact that he was doing all these crazy things. But I think it was super impressive. He, none of us knew what his, everybody in the spectator lounge was confused with what his rules were. We were like, we have no idea. And then he, wins and comes down and is like, yeah, my rule was twice as many blue squares as blue squares. And we were just all like, that's fucked up.
Yeah, that was a really fun moment as well.
Yeah, I think the other thing I want to shout out is I do agree Eden has a very strong case. I think Alex in Gambit Game was also pretty neat because I think he was also the only person in that main match to figure out that twist. Mm-hmm. It's like a Jino's open pass moment. That's kind of the vibe.
Can you explain it?
Yeah,
Can you spoil it for everyone who...
Yeah, I would love to spoil this neat show for all these new people.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want spoilers, you can skip 3 minutes ahead, you know?
This is the one warning we did after, going through 2 entire categories. Anyway,
we kind of announced it.
Yeah.
So, a gift exchange, you get hints about, which gift has the token of life and how many points the other gifts give, all that jazz, but you can completely ignore the hints because each gift box has its own corresponding graphic, and it's it has it's wrapped with striped ribbons or whatever, and it also has circles on the box, and I think the value of the box is the number of circles minus the stripes or something like that, and Alex notices it. And he figures out the winning gift and the losing gift, and basically the value of every gift, just by that observation alone. Of course, he didn't need it. He eventually finds out through hints. But he was, I'm pretty sure, the first person to be confident in the exact values of each gift, because he was also the only person to figure out this little trick in the graphics. I think this is also on top of just unintuitive rules, taking advantage of unintuitive rules and plays. I think finding tricks in the main match is also in the spirit of this outside the box category. So I think Alex also has a very good case because it's also the only case of a trick explicitly hidden in the main match.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, I think we can move on from this.
True.
Yep. I do like the shard play.
Yeah.
I will say the shard play is pretty funny.
I think it's a good play. I don't think it's out of the box.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say.
I nominated the Alara play, but I think that's more a flex of just social dominance than anything else. Isa also did it in
yes.
ZGB, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
That's the Isa play that he did. He intentionally gave the token to Chifa because he knew E was never going to DMO him.
Yeah.
Right, biggest underdog main match victory. The player this year who overcame the greatest odds to win a main match. This is a hard category this year because I really don't know who's supposed to win.
It's clearly Joey for me. It's Joey winning U-Boat Shield.
I agree. I do think that one has the strongest case. Basically, like I said, Joey had like 1 in 6 odds to win going up against...
Okay, picture this. The rules are also kind of scuffed for like second place. Because, like, if you die early, you can pick a submarine to, like, kind of join forces with. And if that submarine, like, survives until the end, you're safe. If that submarine dies, you're, like, basically EC. And so, like, Alex dies first. He joins Nolux's ship, who's, like, a good pick. Nolux is dominating strategically. Then Grunkle dies. Grunkle assesses the situation. He sees, like, Joey with, like, 1 life. He sees Nolux with, like, 2 lives and, like, all these upgrades. Easy pick! Actually, no, compelling pick. Really difficult. But Grunkle, you know, with all his brain power, made the right choice and picked Nolux's ship. If that ship you join dies, then the person who most recently joined that ship becomes EC. Otherwise, what is it, like the last person who like dies who's not on the winning ship? Like,
yeah, something like that.
Becomes EC. So
it's essentially Joey's fighting for his life.
Yeah, Joey's fighting for his life now, even though he's like second place, technically, right? Like if he doesn't kill Nolux's Omegatron ship, then like submarine, then like he's the elimination candidate, first duelist.
For reference, Nolux had assembled like all the good powers, so Nolux had a ship with 2 other people where he had like +1 movement, +1 rage, 9 range,
+4 like
extra like area,
shots,
area like
splash
damage area, like
crazy. And then Joey makes this like Hail Mary, like 1 in like 20, 1 in 30, like fucking odds of like he had to pinpoint exactly where Nolux would be. It's not even like he shoots a general location and like the splash damage will hopefully get him. He had to like pinpoint exactly where Nolux would be. And he like pinpoints perfectly the exact location. Really low odds. That wins him the game, the main match. And that makes Grunkle EC, and who then picks Nolux to the deathmatch. Crazy stuff. Everyone was convinced like Nolux is moving on to Final 3. Everyone was talking like it's just a done deal, and boop, there comes Joey.
I think the other ones are not as compelling. Space wins Uncharted Territory despite like a 5v1 attempt at it, but it's mostly because Gold like fucks up the rules. Dems winning Golden Favor has a similar story where Dems wins despite kind of a 2v1 situation, not really, but Fruit crucially misreads a few rules and it's just enough for Dems to win by 1 point. I don't know what the ND math one is.
Okay, so I think I nominated that based off of like a misunderstanding of the social dynamics at that point in the org. I thought ND Math was like pretty isolated on account of just like not really having won anything in the previous few games, and makes the deal with Zizek to win.
Correct.
Effectively, like in 1 turn.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
I figured he at least deserved a shout.
Yeah.
Sure. Good for him.
But yeah, biggest underdog DM.
Biggest underdog deathmatch victory. The player this year who overcame the greatest odds to win a deathmatch.
And there's 2 ways to look at this. You either look at this from a reputation standpoint. You know, you're like, oh, he's going up against like Grunkle Squeaky. Like, I can't believe he beat Grunkle Squeaky or whatever. Or you can look at it as from a game state standpoint, in which like this person was hard losing the deathmatch pretty early on and somehow clawed their way back. I think both like ways to look at it are pretty valid.
I think I'm getting cooked.
I think you are.
I think you are getting cooked.
I think like Zizek,
literally as we're saying this, I am marking this on my
Zizek beating Marcer, I think like fulfills both checkboxes, does it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we even need to discuss anything else. Like, okay, I think Dems defeating Uriquack is also pretty impressive, but
Dems defeating Toby is also pretty impressive.
Yeah,
I think Amaranth like beating David. We discussed this on why it was like super fun to spectate. He was hard losing.
Yeah.
He may have been like the favorite like in terms of reputation going into the deathmatch, but after like the deathmatch played out, he was like hard losing, and we all thought he was cooked, and he just came back.
Yeah, but I think I'm cooked.
I think you're cooked. I
think you're cooked.
I think Zizek beating me shocked everyone, literally everyone, including me and including her.
Okay, but what's the question? Like, the question is, was Brian winning more shocking, or was Zizek winning against you more shocking?
Brian has a Marcer number of 2, by the way.
Yeah, that is the greatest thing to come out of CO, honestly.
I think it also gives Brian an ISA number, so...
Yes. Just so goated.
Incredible. Alright. Best main match player. The player this year who had the strongest single org main match performance. So in a single org, who was the player who had the best main match performance? I think I'm a good shout for this.
Well, it's your fruit. It's your fruit.
Correct.
Depends on what you value.
You make the case, Jackson.
Okay. It's really, really tough. I think your social position was a lot more exposed in CO. Like, everyone knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
But your results, I think, speak for themselves outside of, like, the final main match where you just kind of didn't really give a shit anyway, I don't think.
Yeah.
It could really go either way. I think Fruit had a very strong performance in Nolnata as well, and also just had a few main matches that he just didn't really care about, which I fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your poison. They're both really, really good runs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be biased, but I do think both runs are pretty good. I think they're equal. I think I counted. They have the same amount of immunities across the same amount of episodes if you count the mega episode as one.
Yeah.
The mega episode for me, it's like I had 2 lives. It was strategically advantageous for me to throw because I was the person who was least in danger of dying as opposed to my partner. And Fruit made a bunch of similar plays, right? There was one main match where he strategically didn't win because he didn't need to, and doing so would raise his threat level. So... But we also just made blunders, too, so...
Yeah.
I think it's about the same.
I think in nearly every other category, I'm going to try to find a distinct winner. This is the one where I know in advance I'll be voting for, like, two options.
Do you have any thoughts, X?
I think one of you was EC. One of you wasn't. At one point.
That main match doesn't count because that main match sucks. That main match sucks, and we're not going to talk about it. Alright, best deathmatch player. The player this year who had the strongest single org deathmatch performance. I think there are 2 strong nominees for this, much like the... Yeah, I think it's 2, and with a kind of distant third. Amaranth obviously had a super impressive run and vote, but Dems had perhaps a more impressive performance in Nolnata, where basically both of them went on a 3 DM streak, right?
It was
in
the
late game
same point in time too, like final 6, 5-4.
Yeah,
correct. And they were both. It was both a result. Both of them. It was a result of basically being targeted by the rest of the cast, right? Being singled out. In Dems' case, Fruit basically decides, I don't want to play with you anymore, and kicks him to the curb. And in Amaranth's case, it's more of a concerted effort by everyone else to take out the biggest threat. Dems' wins are PRCS Math, Toby, and Uriquack in that order. And Amaranth's wins are David, Fruit, and Jackson in that order. So... I think on paper, Dems has the stronger, like, the average skill level of those 3 players is probably stronger than the average skill level of Amaranth's run, but Amaranth beat Fruit, who beat Dems.
And you also have, like, do you count final matches for this too? Because Dems ultimately lost finals and Amaranth won finals.
I don't personally factor it in.
I don't either, but
I mean, he got 1 win on Fruit also. Dems did, so it's like, it's weird. But I do think I am more partial to Dems' run. I think also just the fact that like the 3 players he beat in PRCS, Toby and Uri in that order, were also once in previous award years were nominated for this very category. I think that also just speaks to it. He beat them all.
Mhm.
He beat every person he beat was at one point in contention for best DM player of a previous year. I think that speaks a lot.
Amaranth beat me, and I won this category.
That's true.
So-
That's true. I think it's really close.
It's really close. I can speak a little bit more about Amaranth's run. I feel like he made maybe like a few blunders in Liar's Dice. He would beg to differ. I think he was like very defensive over his play in that game. But other than that, like I really don't think he made many blunders at all. Just the games were close because of the super high quality in play. The final 5 deathmatch came down to really a single blunder by Fruit, who was a little bit ahead the entire time until that point. And then in the game with Amaranth and myself, I had a decent lead at the beginning because I got 2 questions and Amaranth blundered. Well, I don't know if blundered is the word, but he wasted 2 of his reserve or like redo options for the boundary game, which essentially, for those that are not familiar, allowed you to essentially like resubmit a bound for the trivia, which was a pretty massive blow. But he came back and ultimately, obviously, won that game. I thought his play was very good. He dominated the observation questions. Very, very strong performance. I really don't have any notes other than that, in spite of how close the games were in all 3 cases. I feel like I've heard mixed things about Dem's performance in some of the DMs, including on this call. So I will probably support Amaranth on this
That's
one,
fair.
but I do think Dem's opposition, or the players that went against Dems, were stronger, I guess,
Yeah.
on paper, on average.
I think Dem's like greatest strength throughout all these DMs was he was playing a lot of complicated death matches as opposed to Vote's more streamlined, like super kind of efficiently designed. A lot of the Nolnata games had like a lot of moving parts, right? Like playthings of the
That's
past.
a good point as well.
Yeah. And Dem's
Yeah.
greatest trait throughout all of this was he never made a game-losing blunder. Like, yeah, he made a few mistakes here and there, but he was always like playing safe, great moves, while his opponents, like, he just waited for his opponents to like trip up because the games are so complicated, right? And he would always grind out value, and would always like have a decent advantage or always be in contention, and then his opponent would slip up, which I think is like a massive skill when you're playing games that have like thousands of lines of rules, you know?
Final Four is the exception, but
Yes.
I
Final
agree.
Four is the exception. Final Four is the exception. But in the Toby and PRCS case, he made a comeback in both games just by not blundering,
Yeah.
while his opponents would, right? Like always playing really solid, right? And I think that is a skill, right? Being able to be consistent. I do want to give a shout out to Gronkle, who is only disqualified from this award because he lost.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like if he didn't lose DM1, I think he probably wins this award pretty easily because that means he would have won like five death matches. But at that point, the timeline branches and diverges way too much. Yeah.
Wait, why is Kathy dominated?
She beat Grunkle. She beat the winner.
I don't know about that one.
It's the same case we have for Brian winning.
It's the same, like, Amaranth beat Fruit who beat Dems case, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kathy,
Brian beat Zizek, who beat Marcer.
yeah, and Kathy also
We're
has
done.
a Marcer number, I think, because Kathy beat Gronkle,
Yeah.
who beat Reds, and then, yeah, you somehow probably get back to me.
Amazing.
Incredible. Yeah, because Reds beats PRCS and PRCS beats
Oh yeah.
Brian.
and then Brian beats Zizek, who beats... Alright, yeah, we can move on. I
Oh
think
my
it's one of
God.
those two. Best social player. The player this year who had the strongest single org social game. I think this is Fruit.
I also
Yeah,
think
it's
it's Fruit.
I think it's Fruit. I think we can talk about some of the others just to talk about them, but I think pretty clearly Fruit had one of the greatest social runs perhaps ever. Dominated it from top to bottom. I like Scarlett's run in Vote. I thought it was pretty good. I thought she played really well and played a pretty good middleman. Never pissing off Amaranth enough. While also always being on the other team, which I think is frankly impressive. Like, being on Amaranth's quote-unquote good side for that long cannot be easy. I don't know how you feel about it.
I mean, it's a good run.
Yeah,
I just think the others are elite.
correct.
Yeah.
I like Oriquack's run in Nolnada as well. It's kind of Fruit's run, but slightly worse, right? Fruit was clearly the 1A in that pairing. Ilara's run is also really good. I think Ilara's run is socially
fantastic,
extremely impressive. We've already mentioned how she multiple times was able to flex her social skills and make really audacious plays that worked because she had built up this really careful social capital, whether it be in main match 3 or in final 5. So I think that run is also really good.
Yeah, I just think the exception there is the DMO.
Correct, yeah.
But
yeah, like she was definitely called out.
She definitely played in a way where even if she got into one deathmatch, she made sure it never happened again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I'm here.
But... yeah, I don't know why you're here either.
Yeah.
I mean, you're generally a good social player.
I think my reputation precedes me in this category right now. I think every other year I deserved it, but not this year. So, yeah, no, I think this category is really strong, but unfortunately Fruit is the strongest of them all, and I think I see him winning this award pretty handily.
It's probably my vote.
Same.
Mm-hmm. All right, best rivalry.
This is a really fun one.
The two players this year who had the most memorable rivalry. I think the obvious one a lot of people will gravitate towards is Amaranth versus Fruit, because that was kind of an org.
Please let this win. Please let this win.
An org.
Amaranth versus Fruit. Please let this win.
It's an org-defining rivalry. Maybe not exactly from day one, but I think on day one, both of them clocked each other as like a really strong opponent, and then it developed into this immense rivalry that included tic-tac-toe and monkeys and League of Legends and Fruit changing his PFP for that one deathmatch and then losing.
Oh my god.
And reverting it to a baby and nah, I'd win memes. Lots of good content between two incredible players, right? With the benefit of hindsight, we now know that these are two top tier players and they were just locked in a battle to the death. And I think the other part about this rivalry was that it felt very, like, high ground.
Organic.
Or it felt both organic.
Yeah.
It felt super organic. It happened naturally. It was never really forced. And also, they were both, like, super respectful about it.
I agree.
Like,
yeah.
They quote-unquote hated each other, but you always felt that it was because they knew the other was super good at the game.
I distinctly remember a quote from Amaranth. As he was DMOing Fruit, I think he said it in his thoughts channel or something. He was like, getting DMO'd by me is either the biggest insult because I think you're my best chance of winning, or the biggest compliment. And in this case, it was the biggest compliment to Fruit because he was such a threat to Amaranth. Or at least he respected Fruit as a threat.
Yeah.
I think it also adds that they actually faced off head-to-head in that season.
True.
I think it's really funny that you both have more to say about this than I do.
We were spectating it closely.
I just think it was... I was basically a spectator. Yeah. I don't know. It was really funny seeing like both of them at each other's throats for like pretty much the entire game. Like there was no like subtlety in it at all. Like at least with you and Zizek, like you two worked together for quite some time. They worked together for one main match, and Amaranth kind of pissed off Fruit and David towards the end of that first main match, and that just set the entire stage for the rest of the org.
Correct.
Yeah, just an amazing rivalry.
Yeah.
Easy win in my opinion. I
also think it's an easy win. I know Zizek versus me is on here.
I think that
also... like it's a little bit too toxic.
Yeah, I think it's also org defining. It also has the check mark of like, you went head to head twice. You both took some wins and L's, but it was toxic.
That's crazy toxic. Yeah, it's one of the most toxic things I've ever been a part of.
I think Joey Nolux is also. It had its funny moments.
Yeah.
From Nolux just being like, purple cobra. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. Some of these Gambit Game ones are pretty good. I like Joey versus Spicy too, and then them being forced to work together, I think is another angle I like.
That's true.
Calcin versus Port is really funny. I don't think it should win, but I want the viewers to know about Calcin versus Port.
Tell us about it.
I don't know how this happened,
yeah.
but it was just content. For some reason, Calcin didn't, like, they never vibed, and then they started, like, beefing with each other publicly, and, like, Calcin would come up with, like, the most elaborate insults to Port. He would say, oh, wait, I'm sure I have some of these saved, hold up.
Oh my god.
It's frankly incredible.
All of GGG is, like, a fever dream to me.
I can't even say this out loud, but Calcin is like, are you with me? Or are you gonna pull a Port? That's my new slang for a derogatory term I'm not gonna say. Oh my god. Yeah, it's just, yeah, and then like, Calcin was like, hey, can you give me a Garnet? And Port is like, this feels like an abusive relationship. Calcin is like, the memories. What memories? Calcin says, you know, this and that. It's so incredible. The back and forth is so incredible. And it's like a rivalry that I think for some reason spawned since day one. They just never got along. They're just two very different personalities. And I mean, they never really like went head to head or like anything crazy happened, but it's just so funny. Like they had some of the best quotes of the year in terms of like.
This is definitely I assume this is like high quality trash talk, and that's why it's on here.
Yeah, I just wanted the viewers to know about the trash talk. It was incredible to watch. Because both, I think, were also like pretty good sports about it. Also, we can't not talk about their Genius Org Hub interaction, which was Port saying at Calcin, I miss you, and Calcin saying, I'm sorry, do I know you? That encapsulates their dynamic perfectly. That was the way it was the entire org. I just want the people to know.
Peak.
Honestly, peak. Yeah, I have no other words. We can move on. Best Player Pair 2024. The best dynamic duo to play together in an eligible Genius Org this year. I think there is a top two.
I think my pick for this one is going to be not in that top two.
Really? I'm so very curious which one you think it is. I think Fruit plus Uriquack is a very good choice. And I think Marcer plus Juan is a very good choice. I think Fruit plus Uriquack had the total dominance of the game up until they piss off Dems, right? And it was a super strong social showing, They were never in danger throughout until the Dems moment happened. And then the mark against this duo is that Uriquack obviously loses and Fruit has to kind of fend for himself in Final 3. And they're not able to complete the dream, as opposed to Marcer and Juan, who are able to complete the final two promise. They both make it to finals together against each other. Also had strong social dominance, but mostly in the early game, it kind of falters later and kind of breaks apart. So, yeah. Which one is yours? Is it the vote one?
Yeah, it is the vote one. I think, so not only do they, I think something that's like more compelling about the David and Fruit alliance is that they overtly control the org. The entire, like, up until David loses, most of vote is defined by what they want to do and who they want to align with. Apart from, of course, like, you know, Amaranth doing his own thing. So there's that angle. It plays a lot more closely to the story of the org as a whole, in my opinion, than the CO or, CO, like, obviously endgame stuff, it's different. But also, I just feel like the dynamic carries itself out of the org in a way that I don't necessarily see happening in the other nominees. Like, they went on to host, like, you know, a big org together, or I forget what it was, but they like opened signups for.
Yeah, they opened.
Yeah,
for
that.
live web series.
Yeah, it's just really cool.
But Fruit and Uri played League together
all the time.
You can't take that away from them.
Time.
Come on, Jackson. No, I'm kidding.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know if I have it in me to negate the League alliance. But, I think David and Fruit, very strong choice.
I think that's also a fair choice. What do you think, X?
No, I see the point. I think to play devil's advocate, my personal favorite is Marcer Juan, just because like the story.
Yeah.
But play devil's advocate, you both got to finals, like, maybe in part because of the 2-life system. And you both needed that second life.
But I was the one who killed him.
You were the one. Yeah, it's also like you were in that position to kill him in the first place because of the other twist with like the way tokens were handed out in multiple ECs and all that. But I mean, I'm not sure it's entirely fair to knock Fruit Uri just because Uri like lost that final 4. But that being said, I do think Marcer won. You know, I think that was like kind of the hero duo story. I think it also like it was also interesting that like you both faced off halfway through the org.
It was kind of peak.
I don't think you'd ever get that in any other org. Like, you know, like this.
You're welcome for that, by the way.
Thanks, Jackson. My content.
I can't believe they tied perfectly. I can't believe Syrup and Juan tied perfectly and negated all my plans. And I spiraled out of control. That was crazy.
Like sometimes you could see like a duo like face off because there was no other choice, but you never see like both of them come out of that deathmatch alive. And then
with renewed resolve.
Yeah. And then you both locked in, and you both made the end. I think that's kind of it's kind of fun to watch, kind of poetry.
It rhymes.
The fuck?
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Okay.
I'm just saying. I do think I do think any one of those three is a good shout. There were a lot of good pairs this year. A very pair-dominated year, as we'll see in the next category.
I like.
Alex actually, one last thing I want to.
Yeah.
Oh, you can say the Gambit game thing.
But yeah, I like Alex and Nolux because it started off with both of them just like kind of like throwing each other under the bus. I think at one point like Shub was like the elimination candidate, and they were both like kind of saying you should pick the other guy. And then the very next main match, they both came together and realized we can just work together instead of targeting each other. And then they dominated the next several main matches in a way that just felt pretty organic and like mutual benefit kind of deal.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to bring up about the David and Fruit pairs that like also, you know, in terms of like storyline sort of deal, it feels like really compelling in like a tragic way that, you know, David goes out and then immediately after like Fruit's game starts to fall apart because he was a little bit over reliant on that pair.
Yeah.
And he gets like bled out by like Scarlet and me like stabbing him only to, you know, get DMO'd. I thought it was just it tied itself back together into both of their stories very well.
It's a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah, it is a tragedy, honestly.
Romeo dies, so Juliet dies.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I really enjoyed watching their dynamic. I think they work really well together. But I think that's true for a lot of these pairs. So it's just a hard category this year, and I wouldn't be surprised with any of those winning. All right, in comparison, we have one of the funniest categories. Best Player Alliance 2024. The Alliance with the best performance.
This category is a mess.
The Alliance with the best performance in an eligible Genius Org this year, where none of these Alliance survived. There's actually only one Alliance that survived all the way through, and it's an Alliance that had like 12 messages.
The weird thing about this category is like alliances are either very temporary or people die halfway, so it's not like, you know, it breaks apart like pretty early on, and therefore it's not like the entire alliance intact the whole way.
Yeah, but the funny thing is all of these alliance involve, except the secret, no, even the secret life, every single alliance here involves one of the members of the alliance betraying the other members of the alliance.
Oh my god.
Like clearly and distinctly.
So I'm not sure what I'm gonna vote.
No,
me
I don't
neither.
either.
I will say Attic Corner was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, I will say like Attic Corner at its peak, like absolutely fucking dominated the game with zero help from myself. But that's like part of the charm. I did nothing.
No, your antics added to it.
No, you were there for moral support and comedy.
Yeah,
I really was.
It was, but also it was just like
it was just so funny.
Yeah, like when we were all working together, it was clear that like nobody else could really match up. It was just total dominance one every way. But it died very early.
It died.
My bad.
I also just like the name Attic Corner.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very fitting.
Yeah, Sabine came up with a good name.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know the origin story for that name?
I just assumed that like she was like, we're too addicted to these. We're Attic Corner.
Yes.
That's true. It's a playoff anxiety corner for Alliance from Go2.
Deadly Influx.
With
Diasovi,
Diasovi, and Xanth.
Yeah.
And Xanth. Yeah. Which was also, I think, should have won, or would have won the best alliance for that year, had the awards been a thing then.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Secret Link is getting a massive push, but that alliance, while extremely funny...
It's not real, right?
It's not a real alliance. They made an alliance saying, we have a secret link. And everybody else said, we sure do. I know what the secret link is, but I'm legally not allowed to say what it is. And everybody else was like, we sure do. And then that's all that was said. And then at the conclusion of every main match, they say, our secret link is still alive. And they say that every main match until Final Four, where they go, wow, guys, we all made it. And then no other messages are sent.
And this is just the meme nomination, but I'm also not opposed to this winning, just because the other alliances don't really stick until the end anyway.
Yeah, I think in years past, there's been like a strong alliance contender that this year lacks. And so I wouldn't be super upset if it steals it from, I guess, us, because I don't think we really did anything either.
Yeah.
So
I guess the average at best is technically the most successful quote-unquote alliance, but I don't know how much of it.
No, but it's like they didn't work together.
Yeah,
like,
I mean they worked together for like 2 main matches.
At this one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Scarlet very clearly like threw both of them away for Fruit and David. Honestly, I'm surprised that the Scarlet Fruit David alliance isn't here. I thought that was actually a pretty functional alliance for a long time.
Yeah, I would. That's clearly the best one from that work.
Yeah, Mango Protectors or whatever it's called. I'm extremely surprised nobody nominated it, but yeah, that was the most functional, clear trio. Everybody was working together. No other, nefarious intentions until it started to break down with like, I think David was very much the heart of that group, and when David goes down, I think Scarlet and Fruit kind of went different directions, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nominated, so this is what we have. And what a category.
What a category. I'm probably voting Addicts Border out of nostalgia, but I anything can win.
Yeah, I'm also probably doing that. Alright, next is most robbed player. The player this year who was most robbed from victory due to extreme circumstances. I know X has a strong take on this, so we'll let him take the lead.
Go for it, King.
Nolux Gambit Game. I think like he was hella robbed. Yes, he lost a deathmatch fair and square, but I think he should not have been in that deathmatch in the first place. I think the odds of like he was the clear favorite to win the main match. Everyone thought he was a lock for the next episode. He thought he was a lock for the next episode. And then suddenly the win was just stripped from him, like just very, very much out of nowhere. Joey pulled like the clutch move out of his ass and proceeded to high five his fiance. And Nolux.
I don't know why that detail was necessary.
It's really funny though.
Trust the process. And Nolux is all of a sudden like from first place to just in the deathmatch. Against the one guy, the probably the best player of that game among the 4 of them. While Nolux probably was second or third best at that game, would you say?
I think second. I think those are the 2 best DM players left at that point.
Yeah. And maybe even like that particular game. But maybe even DM average. Sure. Bad match. And like just insane odds to like lose a winning main match into bad matchup for the deathmatch. I think he should have made Final 3, and in Final 3, like, yeah, sure, he could have just lost that fair and square, but you'd have to lose the main match and the deathmatch. He had 2 more chances, really, that he should have had to, like, proceed to finals, where he really could have had a strong case to, like, even win. I don't know. It's late game. insane like turn of events, 2 more chances that he could have had that he just didn't get the opportunity to have. I think it to me, No Lux was hella robbed.
Yeah, that's a good case.
Yeah. I do not think any of the Null Nada or Null Not people were robbed. That is my take.
I have 2 things to say. I think, in a very similar vein to Nolux, you can make a similar argument for Amy. I don't think it's as bad as Nolux, because Nolux literally lost like a 1 in 30 or whatever. But Amy did lose due to, in my opinion, a very unfair rule, right? That punished her for playing the game well. But she then lost the deathmatch fair and square.
Oh, yeah, in the main match.
Yeah, but then she lost the deathmatch fair and square. So in a very similar vein to Nolux, I think you can make an argument for Amy that's slightly weaker because it's less about chance and more about just the rules not being set out the right way. You have the devil's advocate argument of, well, everybody had the same rules and she should have realized that the game was going to tie, but yeah, I can see that argument, but it's also just like kind of feels bad that the person who was playing it optimally ends up losing, or like the person who was optimizing their essence submissions is the one who ends up losing because of the tiebreaker. And then the Sean thing. I think Sean lost because he blundered, but I think it is such emotional and mental whiplash to be told you won the game, join the VC, have everyone congratulate you.
That was so awful.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And you can hear him hyperventilating like the entire time, and he's like, "Oh my god, I finally won, like I finally did it." And then we're sitting there for like a solid like 5-6 minutes. And then both PRCS and Sean go dead silent. Sean mutes his mic. And like 3 minutes later, Zero pings both of them, kicks them out of VC, and is like, "We're starting the game again." And like, yes, Sean proceeds to immediately blunder and lose, but I think that is such mental and emotional damage. I don't think many players can resume play from that spot. I think the deathmatch should have been thrown out, right? With a mistake that big, but it's just difficult. It's a difficult call to make in the moment.
Yeah, I remember being on that VC, leaving before the change was announced, and then like coming back to Discord like 2 hours later and being like, "What the fuck happened? Why did how did PRCS win?"
Yeah. I think it's a tough category because both Amy and Sean did ultimately end up losing due to things that were in their control. Like, Sean could have just won again, and Amy could have just noticed the rule and played around it. But I just feel like the circumstances were pretty unfair to both of them. And this is a year where I genuinely don't think anybody was truly robbed. Like in previous years where like Wiki, for example, was very clearly robbed, right?
Yeah.
I think the other shout out, because I know not many people watched Gold's Genius game, is Crest. Crest had a very similar issue to Sean. I think it's slightly more severe. Gold revealed hidden information about Crest to his opponent that his opponent should not have known, and proceeded to just continue the deathmatch. And Crest lost.
Peak.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure Crest was already losing, but that's just the nail in the coffin, right? So it wasn't like a lot of information, but it was enough information that it pretty much meant Crest was dead on the spot.
Yeah.
So rough. So I think that's also a pretty good contender for most robbed. I don't know. I think the category is just very difficult this year because lots of good play, honestly. So I don't know how you feel about it, Jackson.
This is not a category I feel very strongly about. I will probably vote No Lux based off of X's description.
Let's fucking go.
The others are viable.
Yeah. All right, most interesting player to spectate. The player this year who was the most interesting to spectate as they played. Everyone and their mother is nominated for this category.
I'm voting Gold. I maybe the Gambit Game people are like Grunkle, kind of a gimme, but of the non-lives, Gold.
Do you want to show for yourself, Mercer?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know if I don't think I was interesting to spectate because watching me was watching a man go through torture. Like, it's the same entertainment you get from watching, like, I don't know, what's like a really fucking depressing movie?
I think the Zizek Marcer fights were like viscerally, incredibly entertaining for like 5 minutes. and then it just like descended into hell.
Correct. The longer
And
it went on, the worse it became.
The longer it went on, the worse it became. Yeah, that's all I have. That's all I have to say for that.
And
Yeah.
For Gambit Game, I think like Ben was really fun. The 2 episodes he was in.
Shout out Ben.
He was such an early like Chaos King. But he only lasted 2 episodes. Joey and Spicy are like the other 2 people that I both enjoyed watching.
I was gonna show for Spicy.
I think Spicy's my pick personally. He always had like a bit, like every entrance he decorated his room in a particular way. Like the episode after Ben got eliminated, Spicy was like, "It's a celebration, no more chaos to be had." His room was filled with balloons.
Yeah,
it was like, "Happy birthday, everybody!" something crazy.
That's really
like
funny.
That. Yeah.
He would always come dressed in something
Yeah.
new every episode that was topical to what happened
And
like
his
last
confessionals
episode.
were top tier.
And he also had fantastic confessionals, always had incredible quotes, engaged, gave great insight into the game, and on top of that was extremely funny all the time.
Yeah.
Just truly a joy to watch whenever he was on the screen. Loved him as an editor too. Like as someone who was editing Gambit Game, endless content. You could just, if you wanted like a funny clip, you wanted something topical, you could just scroll through Spicy's confessionals and find something. Just incredible.
I think Joey for similar reasons, but he's not as over the top as Spicy.
Joey also has some banger quotes though.
He's funny, but in a different way to Spicy. He's like mean funny.
There's this quote he says where he's like, "I'm gonna bully them. I'm good at bullying people. Like, I'm really good at bullying people." This was like in reference to Triangle, actually, right? He was gonna like bully people into like not like buying certain things and not buying certain things, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm good at this. I'm just gonna do it." And you could just, and then it like pans to him like shouting at people, being like, "Don't do this, do this." Yeah. Or like that one time he was like, "I'm sick and tired of all these losers. I'm just gonna kill them all." My personal pick though is Spicy. I think Spicy was fantastic. Loved him in Gambit Game.
Very, very well-rounded in terms of content.
Mm-hmm.
To make a case for Gold, I guess.
Go for it.
I will say that he continually made non-intuitive plays that not only strongly dictated the outcome of the main matches he participated in, but also has like a certain demeanor and cadence that is just very entertaining to spectate and like constantly causes friction with people.
It's true.
Yet just goes unpunished at the same time. It's super entertaining to watch.
I wouldn't say goes unpunished.
He did end up in the DM.
Not entirely unpunished.
Yeah.
But definitely like mostly unpunished, in my opinion.
It is a lot of unpunished behavior. There's a lot of punishment, but also there are multiple things he got away with he probably shouldn't have, but
yeah.
Incredible. Gold missed.
Incredible.
Peak. Greatest pair chat ever. But yeah, I think all of those are totally fair. Totally fair.